Hi, wonderful people of God. I woke up early this morning. Right now, where I am is 20 past 5, and I woke up earlier on about 2 hours ago. And when I woke up, the Spirit of God put something on my mind, and I really need to share this with you. I really need to share this with you. And I pray that as I share this with you, may your minds be opened enough to be able to grasp what you'll be receiving. I pray that your body will be open enough, ready enough, so receptive to receive all the blessings in this knowledge. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, people of God, what I want to share with you is that I want to speak to you about chemical reaction. Chemical reaction. Now, this is very important. This is very important because once you understand chemical reaction, you'll be able to understand magic. You'll be able to understand, let's say, voodoo. You'll be able to understand Satanism. You'll be able to understand even miracles in Christianity. You'll be able to understand anything else, and you need to understand that God is the creator, is the author of chemical reaction. This is very important, that God is the author of chemical reaction, because God created everything that is chemical. Okay, now as we're talking about chemical reaction, in chemical reaction, we're talking about when, under certain conditions, a substance is completely changed or turned or transformed into another substance. Okay, you understand that? So a substance is taken and completely turned or transformed into another substance. Okay, so that's called chemical reaction. It is said that under certain conditions, you have gold that can be turned into mercury. Okay, gold can be turned into mercury. Now, we know that under certain conditions, you can turn sugar into caramel. Okay, so you can turn sugar into caramel. Okay, I don't know if some of you know about those things. Okay, but it's a reality. Okay, and under another circumstance, you can take like the milk, the full cream milk, you can turn that also into caramel or into sugar. You understand? That is also possible. Okay, you can turn that as well into caramel. Okay, and then that's called toffee. Okay, now I'm just trying to name few things here. So under certain conditions, okay, there are physical things that can be turned or transformed into other physical things. Are we together? Now, let's not focus too much about the shapes and the forms of those things. Like, for example, when you take plastic, and then you can take plastic and melt it, and then you give it a shape. You give to it a shape, and then that shape, it can be in the form of a small bottle. So it could be like 500 ml, or it could be like 1 liter. It could be even 5 liter. Okay. But all those things are just shape, that people see. But you need to understand that all that, it comes from what? One thing, and that's the plastic. It comes from the plastic. Now that plastic could have been in another shape or form before it was melted and transformed into these bottles. So now here we're talking about transformation, but I'm not talking about the law of transformation, which has to do with the law of Hegel, which was a philosopher who spoke about the law of transformation, or transforming quantity into quality. I like that a lot. Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about here today, even though that's very important. Okay, so transforming quantity into quality. You understand? Because one thing that you need to understand on this planet Earth, quality is everything. Quality is everything, because that's value. Okay, that's value. So that's why you don't find much of gold, on the grounds outside, but you find stones and they don't have much value. But when you're talking about gold, diamond, they have got a lot of value, but they are in very rare numbers. Okay, so I'm talking to you about chemical reaction. Okay, so now let's say, for example, when we take water, for example, what makes water? We have two atoms that make more water. Okay, so we have H, which stands for hydrogen, and then you have oxygen. Okay, so when you take two H2O, okay, H2O, that's water. Okay, that's the formula for water. Okay, so then you have other chemical composition that are forming another substance. So we put two substance together, two things together, and then they're forming another thing that becomes one substance. Okay, in the same way, let's say, for example, when we have two parents, for example, they come together, and the two, they mix, they come together, and they form another substance, which is the child that they have together. Okay, so we put the two of them together, and then something else comes out of that. Isn't that beautiful, people of God? Yeah. So I'm taking you somewhere, so just bear with me. Okay, and we have chemical reactions. Okay, chemical reaction. Now, when we talk about chemical reactions, some of the atoms that we have, okay, some of the atoms that we have, like most of the things that we use on earth, okay, in our daily usage and activities, most of the things that we use, we find that most of them, they will always contain else oxygen, carbon, and which one, and hydrogen. Okay, mostly they will have those three elements. So like, for example, if you take anything that's in your house right now and you begin to read the ingredients, you'll find some of those atoms. Like if you take your shampoos, for example. So now, talking about shampoos, that brings us to the gas. Gas is very, very important on this planet Earth. Very, very important, because actually it's almost like everything. Okay, it's almost like everything. But now, talking about gas, there is something that we call alkane. Okay, I remember that when we studied chemistry, we spoke about alkane, and then we said that alkanes. When we're talking about alkane, we're talking about hydrocarbons. Now, in hydrocarbons, you hear like the words. You have hydrogen, and then you have carbon. Okay, so you have H, that's hydrogen, and then the C for the carbon. Okay, now most gases that I can recall, I don't know today about all the gases, but most gases. So when we speak about gas, okay, you always find those two atoms in most of the gases. I don't know if it's all of them. Okay, so I didn't do that research properly, but what I'm saying is that I'm talking about the two things, one substance being transformed to another. Okay, so when we put them together, then that's when we find we get the alkane. So for example, when we talk about methane, and we talk about also ethane, and we have which one, propane. Okay, so we have methane, we have ethane, and then we have propane, and then we have butane. I want to stop with those four. Okay, so the first one, which is the methane, the chemical composition is CH4. So it's one carbon, and then we have four hydrogens. Okay, and then the second one, which is the ethane, we have two carbons. Okay, two carbons, and then we have two carbon. Am I right in this though? Yeah, two carbon, and we have six hydrogens. So it's C2 and then H6. Okay, C2H6, and then the next one is propane. Okay, propane. So propane, we have here, we have C3 and H8, C3H8. So we have 3 carbons and then 8 hydrogens, okay? And then the last one, the butane, we have C4 and H10, okay? So I remember that very well, even though I didn't like chemistry, but sometimes there are things we don't like when we're like going to school and stuff like that. And then later on, we find ourselves liking those things. Like, for example, I never liked philosophy, to be honest with you, but now I'm like one of the greatest philosophers on this planet now. And then I didn't like much of like English was language that I really disliked when I was going to school, secondary school. I never liked English, but now as a French-speaking guy, you can see that I speak English, and even better than most people that were born in English-speaking countries. Okay, so and there are other subjects that I didn't like. Okay, but now I really push, like reading, for example. I never liked reading when I was in secondary school, but now today I love reading. Okay, guys, so listen. So we have the butane, which is the C4H10. So we have 4 carbons and 10 hydrogen. Now, why am I speaking now? Those are gases, okay, and you can find them mostly even in cosmetology. Like in cosmetology, they use them a lot, like the carbons and hydrogens. They use them a lot in cosmetology, which has to do with your skin, your hair, your nails, and all those things, So like if you take your shampoo and you take like your hair product, you always find CH, If you read the chemical ingredients, you always find CH, you always find them. Now listen, there are other composition that you will find, there are a lot of things that you will find, okay? But I just want to speak about this few, okay? Just this few that I want to talk about. So these are gases. Now we know when we talk about gas is very important, like to the extent whereby we're talking about like bomb, like atomic bomb, and all those bombs that we know that they exist outside there, okay? That we know that they exist, and they've got things that they do. So every substance, okay, is doing something. That's one thing that you need to understand. And that's why you can apply a shampoo to your hair, but you cannot apply the shampoo to your nails, okay? So why is it that you find that special, that particular composition and is working on a particular thing, on your body? So in the same way, when you take medications, for example, you will find also chemical reactions, okay? So there were experts, okay, in chemistry. I'm talking about pharmaceutical experts that were able to combine certain substances, and knowing that once these substances they come in contact with particular germs or bacteria, or viruses, there will be a reaction when these two meet together. Okay, they knew that. That's why they did that. Okay, now I'm not big on medicines or medical science because of certain belief that I have. Okay, I have certain beliefs, so particularly side effects of medications, and those things that people ignore, but those things that are affecting them, like from time to time, that people have, like ulcer. People can have ulcer from taking medications and things like that, and then you still have to go and treat the ulcer, and treating the ulcer, you get other diseases. So it's like an ever-ending, unending cycle, it's a cycle that never ends, okay? It's always going on, and who is getting the money all the time, you should know. Okay, anyway, so they know that when this particular composition comes in contact with a particular disease, there is going to be a reaction, and in that reaction, that's when the germs, the bacteria, the viruses, they get killed. Okay, so that's where they die. Okay, that's when they die. Okay, so everything that we see outside there has a reaction on another thing. So one thing has a reaction on another thing. And that's why it is very important for spermatozoids and ovaries to meet. Okay, so in that meeting, that's when the fetus is conceived, is if the woman is definitely. Okay, so that's when the fetus is conceived. Okay, so the two are meeting to create a fetus. Okay, so there is a reaction there. There's a reaction. Now this brings us to something. So when I started, I spoke to you about magic. So in the world of the magicians, for example, let me just use a magician as one. Okay, so in the world of a magician, what happens is that they mix chemical products, like substances, that they mix together. So they know what to mix because they've got books that they read and they know what to mix with what, That's how it works. Any magician will tell you that by mixing this, like when you take the hair of the cat and then you take the blood of this animal or that animal, and then you mix it with this and that, with that stone, and then you took. That's why in most sectarians and even occultic movement, like satanic movement, you'll find even satanic rituals, you'll find where people put blood on stones and things like that, because they know that by doing that, it creates a reaction